Podcast show. It's Words versus Words with Friends podcast featuring Joeleen Santiago and Shemeka Montgomery. This is a fun, innovative, interactive podcast filled with stimulating discussions and healthy debates using words and phrases that we use every day. Now, let's get to the podcast.
Hi, welcome to Words versus Words with Friends. This is a fun, interactive podcast where we challenge your mind and perspective using everyday words and phrases. I'm your host, Joeleen Santiago, and I have my co-host here, Shemeka Montgomery.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are so excited to have you. We want to apologize for last week. We were having some technical issues. We appreciate you for tuning in last week. Also for coming back this week. We really do appreciate your support. So Words versus Words with Friends, it was really created. We want to create dialogue. We want to bring back the art of conversation. And we also want to help you to think outside the box. So tonight's episode, we have another set of good words. So tonight we're going to talk about which one has a more negative impact. Is it arrogance or is it being conceited? So we're going to look at the definitions. So for arrogance, we have an attitude of superiority manifested in an overbearing manner or in presumptuous claims or assumptions. And for conceited, we have having or showing an excessively high opinion of oneself. So, Joeleen, these two words are very similar. So that is what we do here on Words versus Words with Friends. We take two words that are very, very close that can really interact with each other. And we kind of just look at the different perspective of each. So for this week, I have the opinion that arrogance has a more negative impact more than being conceited does. Mm-hmm. So, Joeleen, what are your thoughts?
And my viewpoint is I believe that being conceited has more of a negative impact.
Mm-hmm. I just think that for arrogance, the very first thing that comes to me a lot of times is possibly even being narcissistic. So I just think that when you're conceited or you're arrogant, they are very close and they really can intertwine with each other. I just think that being arrogant has more of a negative impact because of the way that it makes other people feel. When it comes to being conceited, I look at that as something where you think you are so good within yourself. You're conceited about the way that you look, your appearances. But when it comes to arrogance, you feel like you are superior or that you're better than someone else. So that's why I think it has a more negative impact.
Well, I see that conceited is that you have an excessively high opinion of yourself. So I see it being that you're higher. You look at yourself as being higher than everybody else. That's the way that I see it. So if you guys are tuning in today, I want to encourage you. We want to hear your opinion. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear your perspective. Which one do you feel has more of a negative impact, being arrogant or being conceited? We want to hear what you have to say this evening. So, Shemeka, when I think of it, and I think of an example, I think of, even going after a job, mm-hmm. And there's one thing when we have confidence, there's one thing when we're confident about the skills and the ability that we bring even mm-hmm. to the job. But being conceited is a whole lot more than just being overly confident. It mm-hmm. is, I look at it as I'm qualified for the position and you are not. I can do a better job than you can. So I feel that I can bring more to the table, or I feel that it is my right to get the job and not you. And so when I don't get the job, I'm going to be upset, or I'm going to make you feel bad if I don't get the job. So I feel that that's the negative impact, is how I treat you because I didn't get something that I felt that I deserved.
And see, I see it the opposite way, because I feel like if you're trying to get a job and you think that you're skilled and you have the qualifications, I just feel like being arrogant has more of a negative impact because of the way that it affects other people. You know what I mean? It's like you go into the job and you apply and you just think that you know everything, and you make the person feel like they are lower than you. They are beneath you. So to me, that's the more negative impact, because I feel like when you're conceited, there's almost a chance for you to kind of tone that down. I feel like once you get into the arrogance part, I feel like your ego is so inflated that it's hard to come back from that. That's why I say sometimes I relate it with being narcissistic. And then when we talk about ego, enlarged ego, we also want to invite you to go back and watch an episode, Let Go of My Ego, on Next 15 podcast. That was a really good episode about ego and how harmful it is. So, just want to put that little plug in there real quick, Joeleen.
Mm-hmm. And they also had an episode on narcissistic behaviors too. So that was really good too. Because, that's a word that often comes up a lot, when we talk about people being self-centered and people being conceited or arrogant, we do see the narcissism, those tendencies coming out. But, Shemeka, I just, I see, I see it differently. Like arrogance, I could see it in one way, you can't tell a person anything, they're always right, whatever, And so I think when a person is that way, you can kind of just let them be. And I really just think that maybe they'll just go away. I think eventually they'll just go away. But when you have a person who is conceited, I feel like it's everything that they do or everything that they say, they feel that they're better than everybody else. So they put themselves up on a pedestal. Whereas a person I feel that is arrogant, I think eventually they're just going to just let it be and they'll just walk away because, in their mind, they think that they're right. But if they don't get that attention, and it's not like everything's not centered on them, I believe that, they're just going to walk away. Whereas, a person who's being conceited, they're always wanting to be the center of attention. Like, hey, I feel that I'm better at this job. I feel that I can play sports better. I feel that I'm great at everything that I do. So
I see that as the opposite, Joeleen, because everything you're describing, like we said, they are very closely tied together. I just still think that being arrogant has a more negative impact. And an example that I will use is I have been in a relationship where someone was very arrogant. And of course, later I realized that they had the characteristics of being a narcissist. And I just feel like it has a more negative impact because of that relationship. I feel like I am still actually healing from that. You know what I mean? Like I have had a lot of healing from it, but it is very damaging. It's very damaging to your self-esteem, the way that you feel about yourself, the way that you interact with other people. It really makes a difference, and it really does have a negative impact on you.
But, it makes me think of like, are they blind to how they are and how they behave? Are they blind to the fact that they're being arrogant? I think that if you're conceited, like you know that you're being conceited, that you're behaving in a certain way, and you're going to let people know your abilities. You're going to let people know, hey, that I'm gifted at this, or, I could play sports better than you. I could play basketball better than you. I can do that job better than you. Like, you're letting the person know, and you're not only just letting them know, but you're demonstrating it through action. So you're showing them. Whereas arrogant, I don't think that they always know that they're being arrogant.
But see, I think they do, because I think they start out being conceited. I think that it goes from confidence. It can go into being conceited, because those are closely tied. And then I think if being conceited is left unchecked, I think it can go into arrogance, which I think is a very negative part, because I feel like it's very hard to come back from that. Because if you are narcissistic, that is something that is almost, I'm not going to say instilled in you, but you've been like having that attitude for so long and thinking that you were, everything and better than someone else and above someone else, so that when you hear somebody else's perspective, to be honest with you, you don't even hear their perspective because you don't even let them talk. You cut them off and you interrupt, and you just think that everything that you do is superior to them. And I just think that is very, very negative, because when you hear the word arrogant, my first thing I think of is air. You know what I mean? So you have an air about you of being negative. of being condescending, of thinking that you are above and superior. And when you have that mentality, I just feel like that's a very dangerous place to be in.
So you said that there's no bouncing back once they get to that point where they're being arrogant, but I feel like if they're being conceited, I just feel like you're already at a negative standpoint as it is. Once you cross that line of being just overly confident, and you cross into being conceited, I think at that point you've already went the negative route. You've already went the negative way. So I feel like at that point, you already have a negative impact on how you make other people feel.
Well, I want to bring up a scripture that I looked up, and it was Proverbs 8:13. So when I kind of did a little bit of digging, I kind of looked up scriptures that talk about arrogance, and it shows that there's 44 verses that talk about being arrogant. So I do think it is very negative. So the scripture says, the fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, and arrogance, and the evil way and the perverted mouth I hate. So I just looked up that scripture because, like I say, between the two, you can come back from it, because you know what, God is a healer and he can do all things. But I just feel like once you get into that arrogance where you feel like you are superior, sometimes it's hard to go back from that. And something else I wanted to share is, something that I kind of realized too, which really kind of touched me, was I was looking up, characteristics of being arrogant. And it talked about sometimes that people that are arrogant have a hard time accepting criticism. And, that really kind of touched me, because I do struggle with the constructive criticism, that I get. And so it's made me really look at myself, over the last few weeks, and really just try to change my attitude and just be like, I don't want to come off as an arrogant person, because I feel like it's very negative to the people that are around you. And so it's something that I'm working on myself.
So it's being prideful, it's being prideful. And sometimes, not accepting that criticism, because, positive criticism will help you grow. It will help you become better, and make those improvements in your life. And when you don't accept that, that's a form of pride. And so then we have to ask ourselves, are we being conceited or are we being arrogant, in those situations,
Yeah, that's
because
good.
if we want a promotion on our job, what do we have to do? We have to accept that positive criticism, and then if you don't, like, are you being conceited or are you being arrogant? So that's so true. That's something that we always have to look at ourselves, and self-reflection. I believe is important every day, all the time.
Very important. And it really kind of got me, because I always use the term being teachable. So when I saw that, I thought, man, am I being arrogant? You know what I mean? Like, I never want to come off that way. I want to remain teachable, because I want to grow in my job, in my career, family, friends, everything in life. I just want to be a positive person. So that really did kind of touch it. That's why I like this show, is because, to be honest with you, I learn something every single week. You know what I mean? Like, we learn so much, and how to look at other people's perspective.
But you also got to think too, are you comparing yourself to other people? Like, are you comparing yourself to the point where you're saying, hey, I'm better than you, or I'm better than that person? Because I think it's just a little bit more than just not accepting positive criticism. I think it has more to do with how you make another person feel. What are your intentions? Are you doing it because you want to be in the limelight? Are you doing it because you want that attention? How do you want other people to see you? So I think it just really depends on how you treat others during whatever situation that you're facing.
That's good. And I something else that I thought about too, just for myself, when it comes to being arrogant and how it has a negative impact. I just think about how I was even in high school, being a believer and being, saved. I feel like I didn't think that I was being judgmental or even arrogant. When I looked at other people and what they were doing when I thought it was wrong. I have to look at it and see, you know what? I was actually being arrogant, and at 42, I'm realizing, like, Shemeka, you have to change some things, and look at things a different way. So that's something I don't want to do. I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to think I'm above anyone, because I'm not. I'm a sinner just like everybody else. So I don't ever want to think like that. So.
That is so
really
true.
Had to come to Jesus meeting this week.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. Hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue the discussion, and we want you guys to think and to reflect, which one do you think has a negative impact? Being arrogant or being conceited? So we'll be right back on Words versus Words with Friends.
Kristen, thank you for your comment. Is the intention of the manipulator or the effect on the person being manipulated more important? Kristen, that is a very good question. So I do think that the intent of the manipulator, to me, it makes a difference, because in the example that I use, if you have a nonprofit organization, they're not going to come to you with maybe ill intentions. They're going to try to appeal to you and say, hey, these are the people who need help. Can you please help us out so we can make a change in the world? So I do feel like it is the intent, like you said earlier, Joeleen, when it comes to manipulation, by definition, it can be something that is negative. But if you really look at it, it can also be something positive. It's all about that perspective and that intention, like Kristen mentioned.
I want to say the effect on the person being manipulated, because it can be my perception as to how the manipulator is coming at me. So if it's my perception and I feel like I'm being threatened, or I feel like I'm feeling pressured, or I feel like somebody is controlling me, this is an overwhelming feeling that's coming at me. So to me, I feel that the way that a person makes me feel is so important, and what tactics or strategies is the other person, the manipulator, throwing at me, I think is going to be really important, because you can have a manipulator come at you, and they can try to sway your decision or sway your emotions, but the way that you react to it, you might say, okay, well, I recognize and I see what this person is doing, but I'm not going to stand up for it. So therefore, I'm going to put up some boundaries and let them know, hey, what you're trying to do is not going to work. Welcome back to Words versus Words with Friends. So that was a clip of our last episode, Manipulation. Is it good or is it bad? 78% of you said that it was bad and 22% said was good. So each week we want to encourage you to cast your vote. We put a question out there every week. We want you to cast your vote, and we want to hear your perspective. What do you have to say about it? And every week we will share those results. Cast your votes this week. Which has more of a negative impact, being arrogant or conceited? And that is our show tonight. We will have the results next week. You can vote on our Facebook page at WVWWF, or even our personal Facebook pages, Joeleen Vasquez and Shemeka Montgomery.
Yes, and before you get started, Joeleen, I just want to say one thing. I just want to give a shout out to you and tell you happy birthday. I want to tell you that I love you, that I really appreciate you, and you are such a good friend, and I just hope you have the very best year ever. So just want to interrupt real quick.
Thank you so much. I did not even see that coming. You played a good one on me. Thank you. I just want to say that I am truly blessed to be alive, truly blessed to see 45. I know that there have been my school age, high school classmates and stuff that have not even gotten to see 45. So I am truly blessed. God has truly brought me a long way in life, and I am a walking testimony. So, so let's go ahead, Shemeka, and let's get back to this debate. So I believe let's that. Get into it. And I just wanted to say, I won that debate. Is manipulation good or bad?
You
so
know what you did.
Throw that out there. 78% said bad, which was my perspective and my view. So I do want to give you a little bit of credit, though. You didn't get 0%. You did get 22%.
I did get 22.
So a little bit of people
I got 22. You're right.
So
you're right.
So kudos
I
to
won
you.
a little bit.
So yeah, getting back to the debate. So negative. Which one has more of a negative impact? Being conceited or being arrogant? I say being conceited, because once you get to the point of being overly confident in the way that you make people feel, I feel like there's no turning back. Once you put it out there and once you make the person feel the way that you make them feel, like there is no turning back. I always say be careful what you say and how you treat people, because once it's out there, the damage is done. I mean, you can ask for forgiveness, but in reality, people don't forget.
You're right, but I just still think that the being arrogant is more of a negative impact, because like even with your body language and how if you're having a conversation with someone, like I mentioned before, cutting people off, your body language showing that you're not interested, just really being super arrogant. You know what I mean? Like you always kind of think of the example of, the jock in high school and how he, is so good at playing sports, and, he's become so arrogant. I think it started off as confidence. I think that his parents probably encouraged him when he was young. They were playing football and they were doing drills. And so he got confident. He built his confidence. But then I think as time went on and people started praising him, maybe, it could have turned into being conceited, which could have led him into having an enlarged ego, and then being arrogant, and at that point, when you have developed some of those traits as time goes on, I think sometimes it's hard to reverse that. That's the reason that I think it's more of a negative impact compared to being just conceited.
Well, let's look at it this way. Shemeka.
Okay.
What if them being conceited had caused them to be successful? I mean, think about it. Sports, right? Think about it. How do they end up being the number one player? How do they end up being the most valuable player? Their confidence being just a little bit conceited. Like, is that okay? I think so. Maybe in that instance, maybe it was a positive impact. Maybe.
But I still don't agree with that, Joeleen, because even if you're being conceited, once you become arrogant, I guess it's being superior is the thing that gets me, because I don't want to use this as an example necessarily, but when I hear superior, I automatically think of Hitler for some reason. Like that's just the first thing that comes to my mind, and I just think that when you get into the area of being arrogant, it comes out in so many ways and it affects you in so many ways to where you think that you can do everything and you really can't learn from anyone else. And the whole purpose of life and even having experiences and friends and family is to learn and to grow. And if you're arrogant and you think that you can't learn or grow anymore, then what's the point? You know what I mean? So that's why I think it's a lot more negative than just being conceited.
So no type of positive in there at all.
I don't think so.
In any situation, or just arrogant. But I think that you can ignore people that are arrogant, but I don't think you can ignore people that are conceited.
Okay.
Because I think they just keep going at it. They keep over and over and over again. It's like a broken record, and you kind of get tired of hearing them to the point of, you don't want to be around a person. You don't want to be their friend. Like, I think arrogance you can kind of ignore. I just don't think being conceited you can ignore. And I don't think that I could be a friend with somebody who is conceited, because they're always going to bring it up better. Hey, you lift weights, I can lift weights. I can lift more. Hey, you know what? I can run a mile too. You know what? The conceited person will say, I can run too,
But see, I see that as being arrogant, though. I don't see that necessarily being on the conceited side, because, you're just trying to overperform or, one up the other person. So I think that that's more of being arrogant, which I think is so negative because it affects you in every area of life. I don't think you can move forward from that, especially if you are narcissistic and you have those tendencies and those other traits. You make people feel small. Like I used an example earlier when I was in that relationship. If that person came into the room, it made me feel small. It made me feel not heard. And when you make someone feel like that, it's very negative and it's very damaging. I could almost accept the fact if he wanted to be conceited. To be honest with you, I would prefer him be conceited than arrogant, because I just feel like if he was conceited, he cares about his appearance, or he cares about the types of things that he can do. But when it comes to him being arrogant, it affects you a whole lot more is what I think. I feel like it really, really, affected me a lot compared to just him just being conceited.
Yeah, but when a person's being conceited, I feel like they belittle the other person. They belittle them to the point where, what you do is not important, but what I do is important, as far as being conceited. Hey guys, you guys that are tuning into Facebook, those who are on Spreaker, what do you think? What is your perspective? We want to hear what you have to say. What do you think? I mean, is Shemeka winning? Am I winning? We want to hear what you guys say.
But wait, should I let you win tonight since it's your birthday or what?
Oh, I know I'm gonna win. It's already in the hat. Like, it's already,
cool. Okay,
I'm just waiting for the results for next week.
Okay, I got you. Okay, I feel you. I'll get you. Okay, so you're not, and I know you're not being conceited, and I know you're not being arrogant. You're just being confident, right?
Confident. It's confidence. Confidence at its best.
You know what? I got you. That's how you're supposed to be, is confident. I got you.
Yeah. So guys, we encourage you. We want you to cast your vote. We want to hear, we have put these polls up every week, so we definitely want to hear what you have to say. So hey, I still believe, I'm still standing my ground, Shemeka. There is no shaking this woman. This woman is holding her ground. I'm telling you. When I make my point, I try to stick with it, but I really just truly believe that when you get to that point, so even when you said conceited comes before arrogance, but I feel that even when you get to that point of being conceited, that it's already negative conversation or whatever, it's already negative. You're at the negative point. So to even go on, I mean, is there anything more greater than negative? Can you be even more negative than negative? So once it's already done, in my opinion, like the damage is already done. Like you've already put it out there. So
I do want to read a comment, not to cut you off. I want to read a comment from Louise. She says, at the moment, I'm feeling that one is no better than the other. And you're right. They're so very close and so very similar that I don't think one is better than the other. They are very, both of them are very negative. And here on Words versus Words with Friends, we just like to look at each other's perspective. We both agree that both of these are very similar. I do agree that being conceited is negative too, but between the two, I do think that arrogance is more negative. We are going to go ahead and wrap up. We appreciate you so much for supporting us, for coming back this week. After last week when we had the issues, we appreciate you so much, and we just want to leave a couple words with you. We just want to let you know how much we appreciate you. We also want to let you think about being arrogant or being conceited. Both of those I do feel are both very negative. So maybe we can try to look at ourselves, just like I did this past week, just looking at myself and seeing how I can improve. And, some people may interpret the things that you do or your reaction as being arrogant or being conceited. And so maybe you could just take a step back and just look at that, before you react, and, maybe kind of change how you react to certain things. That's something that I am really working on a lot. So Joeleen, do you have any final comments or thoughts?
Oh yeah, that's so true. I mean, we always put out our perspective out there, and and sometimes we may take one side just to show the perspective that there is not just one track mind thinking. We don't have just a one track. We don't all think the same way. We don't all believe the same way. So when we're bringing in different perspectives, we're just showing you and we're just giving you another way to look at a situation or to look at a word. So just because I may take that standpoint does not always mean that I believe that. So I truly believe that both of these words, they're very negative, and they do have a negative impact on the people that we are around, each day. So thank you so much for not being so critical when I take one standpoint, one viewpoint. So I really do appreciate that. And we thank you for your patience. But yeah, definitely. They both definitely have a negative impact. So I just wanted to stress that and really just say I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And so let's, look at what we're going to look at next week coming up in our episode. So we have, is love an emotion or an action? So we want you guys to cast your vote. This will go up after the weekend. It'll be up all next week. Like I said, we want you guys to tune in live on March 25th at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We want you to join the debate, and we're going to have a line for you guys to call in to the podcast.
Mm-hmm. And you can follow me on Instagram at Mika Live. You can also follow me on Facebook at Shemeka Montgomery. And then
you can follow me, Joeleen Vasquez, on both Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also our Facebook page, you can follow us at WVWWF. And also, like I said, we're going to have our poll on there as well. So you can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker.com, or wherever you listen to your podcast. And also, we want to encourage you to go to next15podcast.com. We have future episodes. We have past episodes you can look at. And we just want to encourage you to see all of the different topics that have been brought to the table with Words versus Words with Friends, and also the Next 15 podcast. Mm-hmm. So we will see you guys next week at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Words versus Words with Friends. You've been watching Words vs. Words with Friends podcast, brought to you by Next 15 Podcast Productions. If you would like to support the podcast, go to next15podcast.com and click the Buy Me Coffee tab, where we will receive your donations of any size. Thank you in advance and for watching the podcast. We will see you next week.